Chris, I hope all is well. Welcome back to T-Town.
Hey, Ryan. Good to be with you guys.
Hey, good to be able to catch up with you. And it's always when we need some of those go-to information, we kind of go to you to kind of help us get us caught up to date. Can you give us the latest with this coaching search here in Tuscaloosa?
Well, I expect Steve Sarkisian to be the OC. He's there unless something falls through at the last minute. I think that's the direction that Nick Saban's moving, and it's one of those moves where you know this, from being around it every day. People remember the last thing you did, and when the last season at Alabama. Even though it was probably a tough spot, he was calling plays, and I'm talking about Sark, in a game that Alabama lost. But I know that Nick has a lot of respect for Sarkisian as an offensive mind. I know Tua really likes Sarkisian a lot. They think highly of Sarkisian. So again, I think that's the way they're going to go, and I think you'll probably see him again. Nothing's written in stone. I think you'll probably see him bring in Kyle Flood as the offensive line coach, a guy that has a relationship with Sarkisian. Of course, the former head coach at Rutgers. I think he was in an interview in the last day or two. But that's the latest that I hear, and we'll sort of see when they announce it, when they get around to finalizing the deal. But it's if you know Nick Saban, that's not surprising. He's always liked to bring in former head coaches, guys that have run their own shop, have worked in different parts of the country, different conferences, guys that he can glean information from, can learn from, guys that he feels like will challenge him in a good way. Some head coaches aren't secure enough to do that. Nick certainly is. And even guys that have had some baggage or had some issues, he's never shied away from that. I think he feels like it's the best thing for his program and his team. And I think in the case of Sarkisian, he knows, again, what the expectations are there. He's worked there. If you're looking at it from his perspective too, Ryan, not a bad gig to come in there with the best receiving corps in the country, a guy throwing the football that will be certainly one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the country, and Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday with Yogi Roth, which worked out at USC with Kiffin and Sark, and Pete Carroll was all part of that. And we were talking about offensive philosophies, and he had mentioned, he said, he was one of the first individuals to do the RPO. So he's very diversified. We know him as the pro set coordinator, but we also know him as a guy that's going to fit with the current RPO direction that this offensive game is taking.
Well, Sark's a smart guy, and that's the thing. I don't care who you talk to, people who've gone up against him defensively, guys who've worked with him on his staff, they all say that. He's smart, he's creative. He is not going to try to jam a square peg into a round hole. He is going to do what his guys can do. You're right. He is a guy that the RPO has been a part of his repertoire, but he also knows what he has in Tua Tagovailoa and that receiving core. And they'll be, it'll be similar in some ways to what they did last year. But I think also you'll see a lot of similarities in what they did when Kiffin was there, some of the different things. But he will use his guys to the max and put them in, and I think that's what he does as well as anything, is he'll put them in position to make plays and get guys in good matchups, and has a lot of talent to work with. And it's when you look at the young players that are on the field, and then they're going to get hit a little bit at the running back position by early interest in the draft. But when you look at guys that can catch the football and quarterback, I don't see a better returning combination quarterback receivers than what Alabama will have in college football next year.
Chris, do you feel like there's more coaching switch-ups that are coming?
I think there could be. I think you could still see something on defense. And I don't know exactly how it will play out. I think Ty Schlupoy is a guy that will get a look at some NFL gigs. I think there's some interest there. And will he have interest, or what's his interest? I think we'll just have to wait and see. But, no, when you look at the turnover on Alabama staff over the last few years, teams and NFL teams have come and they poached a lot of Nick's guys. I know that's frustrating for Nick Saban, but, that's what happens when you hire good coaches. You hire guys who are motivated and want to move up the ladder. I know there's a lot of talk about the turnover there on Nick's staff, but, 80 to 90% of it have been guys who've either gotten promotions, who've gone the coordinator jobs or head coaching jobs are going to the NFL. And you certainly can't blame those guys for doing that. I mean, take Loxley, for instance. Loxley gets the head job at Maryland. Josh Gattis gets the OC job at Michigan. You know, what's Josh in his 20s? I mean, what guy's going to turn that opportunity down? So, you know, the Enos thing was a little surprising. I don't know sort of how that went down. Brent Key is very, very close with Jeff Collins. Those guys go back a long ways, so I understand that one. And then you go back even further. You know, Lane Kiffin got a head coaching job. Cristobal got a head coaching job. Jeremy Pruitt, Kirby Smart got head coaching jobs. So, you know, I think a lot of these guys come to Alabama that are hot commodities, guys that are widely respected in the profession, and they know what has happened for guys who come and work under Nick, as they've gotten, you know, big-time opportunities. I just think that's part of it. And I know for Alabama fans it's frustrating, probably frustrating for Saban. Well, I know it's frustrating for Saban, but that's just part of the deal when you hire good people.
We're talking to Chris Lowe, and you have written about this on ESPN, and we've talked about it multiple times. How important is it for Nick Saban? Because unlike a lot of other programs, when you hire an offensive guy, defensive guy, they have to come in, they bring the concepts in. But Nick Saban has mentioned this many, many times, that don't expect everybody in the building to learn what this guy is going to do. He needs to learn what we want to do. And maybe that's what made these transitions somewhat easier, unlike some of these other places where everything changes up, the terminology, the concepts. Not saying some of that does not, but Nick Saban does kind of keep stable, making that one guy learn what they do rather than everybody learning what this new guy does.
Well, yeah, as long as he's there, the standard, the model, the concepts of what they want to do offensively and defensively are never going to change. You know, that's the concept. I always say, well, you know, turnover they've had, not only just turnover on the coaching staff, but all the players they've lost to the draft, early entries to the draft over the last 3-4 years. A lot of those guys on defense, you know, how they continue to have the success they do. I think a lot of it's just the system that's in place there, and the way Nick continues to grind, and the way they're able, and we've talked about this on your show before, the way they're able to get guys in there that aren't afraid of competition. Great football players who could go anywhere, that come there and know they're going to have to compete, and know they're going to be competing with great players, and aren't afraid of it. I mean, that's, to me, is not that they're the only program that does this. Clemson too, Ohio State had, but they really have done as well as anybody at getting guys to buy into that concept. And, you know, when you look at, again, the turnover they've had on the coaching staff, they just continue to recruit at an elite level.
How much credit should Sark be given of helping Alabama in that transition 2016 year of helping develop some of these RPOs? And I know Lane Kiffin certainly gets a lot of those credit, rightfully so, but I know Sark played a big role behind the scenes.
He gets a lot of credit. Well, first of all, and you know this as well as anybody, Nick Saban doesn't bring in, and I love the whole narrative about Nick Saban Rehab Center for fired head coaches. He didn't bring anybody in there for charity. Right? He's bringing them in there because he thinks they can add value to that staff room, to the program, guys that know what they're doing, guys that maybe bring a little bit different way of doing things. Because he loves, and to me, the genius of Nick Saban is he never stops learning. You know, he's always looking for ways to get better, new ways to do things, innovative ways to do things, new ideas, new approaches. And so, I mean, Sark would have never been there in the first place when he brought him in if he didn't think he was a guy that could add to their program. So I think he certainly deserves some credit. I mean, look at it this way. He pushed Lane Kiffin out the door. And there were reasons. I mean, Nick was frustrated. He felt like that it was best for Lane just to go ahead and focus on being the FAU coach, et cetera. And, of course, there's two sides of that story. But he pushed the guy that had been his offensive coordinator out the door, or told him it was best for him to leave the week of the national championship game, and turned the play calling duties over to Steve Sarkisian. So what's that tell you about his confidence in him?
No, I hear you. No, I think that's the part. And we know that we here in Tuscaloosa, we go back to the Tampa loss, but it's almost unreasonable to think that this guy can go out with a perfect game plan in 6 days. I don't know. I think that's unreasonable, and it's unfair to place those expectations. And
Well, and they had the lead.
Sure.
Alabama had the lead. The offense scored and took the lead late in the game. And, the last time I checked, the defense didn't hold them. They drove down the field and scored. Clemson did. So, was it their best offensive performance? Their best guy, the guy that was really rolling, I think broke a bone in his leg and wasn't as effective. But, it's again, I know there's different ways to look at things. One play or one drive never determined a game, but they did go ahead in that game offensively late in the game and weren't able to hold the lead.
Hey, Chris, where do you think Jalen Hurts ends up if you're making a prediction?
Oklahoma. I think it makes the most sense, and you got the best players around him out there. I wouldn't count out Maryland and Mike Locksley. I think that's certainly a place that he could potentially land. I know he's visited Miami. Of the three, I'd say Miami is third. But I think the leader in the clubhouse are the Sooners.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking here. I saw some of the odds makers did not even include Oklahoma, and I'm like, man, Oklahoma would be just the automatic fit if he could walk in with that skill set, and they might be in the college football playoff conversation again this time next year.
Well, and I think he fits when you look at what Lincoln Riley does on offense and what they did with Murray and just the way Lincoln's really been good at sort of, again, what his quarterback can do fitting into that system. And it makes the most sense, I think, when you look at what's out there for Jalen. I know Jalen, as you know, is a very highly motivated kid. He wants to go somewhere where he thinks he can win another championship. And Oklahoma next year should be very good again. He's got good players around him. A coach offensively, I think from an offensive perspective, Lincoln Riley is as hot a commodity as there is right now in a place that say football matters in northern Oklahoma. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense on a lot of different fronts for her.
Connect with Chris Lowe at CLOW ESPN on the Twitter account, ESPN.com. Find the NCAA College Football tab. You'll always find great work from Chris. Chris, thanks again for making time for us this afternoon. We appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely. Ryan, you take care.